Yeah, I just assumed. I assumed you were.
But not about me.
No, not
But
about you.
but you don't know who's listening,
Other
so.
stuff.
All right, we'll give people like we're early, so we'll give them another minute or two to get here. I'm always amazed when people are here at 10 o'clock in the morning.
I'm amazed that I'm here myself.
I mean, same, really.
Yeah, Billy and I have to
Driving in from Grayson is an extra 30 minutes.
Wow. So you drove in this morning? Oh, my goodness. Wow.
I've only, in all my days, I've only commuted once. And that was actually in 2007. I stayed with Matt.
Where do you drive in from?
Norcross.
Oh, okay.
Well, I drove to Norcross. And
Right.
Matt and I drove to the Harvest Station.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a lot of things later in the evening or at night that I wanted to do.
Sure.
That's always the catch. Do I travel with
Yeah,
this guy?
nice.
I don't
Right.
worry about it when I'm with Billy, but yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Probably where I'm going to head after we're done taking it out.
Right. Taking when you strike your.
Yeah, however, see, I am 56-year-old, meaning I may be too tired to attend this potentially amazing panel.
That's relatable.
You
Show.
have to.
Who else is too tired?
Oh, my God. This isn't the curtain talk, David. Just saying.
This is David.
Yeah.
Yeah, come to the show tonight. There's a lot more where I came from.
Woohoo. I mean, you sold me on it.
Just steer them off, David. I
Did you
promise
really?
there will be other things.
I realized that I post all my press material on Facebook and I don't write it down anymore. And so, like 2 days ago, I just like, okay, I'm gonna scroll back to my Facebook.
Roll your statuses. There you go.
Write down all the cool stuff.
Nice.
It's like workshopping. You're
It is,
workshopping your
yeah.
material on
What kind of
Facebook.
response does it get?
It goes in the opening pattern.
Yeah, I actually like in my head now. I have a David Benedict style of jokes that I read. So Yeah.
I run across things and I'm like, that sounds like a David.
yep.
And most of the time, it's
And you generally, yeah.
Sometimes it's already a David.
Yes.
joke. I've heard that before. You
If-
don't know David Benedict, do you? It shows,
All right, so it's 10 o'clock. Are we good to?
shall we?
I don't know. They're all looking. They're looking perplexed. Well, we'll start. So we'll go ahead. All right. Good morning. Welcome to our building the audio drama panel. It's 10 o'clock on Friday. Thank you all for coming down here this early. We appreciate it. My name's Tony Serecki. I'm going to moderate this panel, but before we actually get started, I want to remind everyone that DragonCon is committed to helping the community through raising funds and providing a dollar-for-dollar match to this year's charity, which is the Northern Alliance of Mental Illness. So you can come up here and use the QR code, or they have one back at the table that you can use, or we actually bought these cool little badges at the DragonCon store. So you can support it however you want. So that's what we're going to do. So like I said, my name is Tony Serecki. I am a audio drama author of many properties. I'm probably the one I'm most known for is the Harry Strange radio drama. But I've also written for the Atlanta Radio Theater Company, which is well represented on our stage. And I've written for the Radio Theater Project in Seattle, Washington. And so we're going to talk kind of a super high level 101 building the perfect audio drama. I know the track, the digital track has deeper dives later on today, tomorrow, on, more like that. I'm pretty sure they have a specific gear specific panel that you can come to. We're going to touch on everything, but we're not necessarily going to take deep dives. If you have a question, go ahead and just raise your hand, because I know everyone on this panel, and except for Ellie, the rest of us will get distracted and never get back to you.
I won't get distracted.
Well, you're a teacher, though. She's a teacher,
That's
so
why I'm a good teacher.
that's
I
why.
get distracted as much as the kids do. That's why they like me.
is that So we will, but you can just go ahead and raise your hand and come up to the microphone. This is being streamed live and recorded. So you will, I don't think your face will be on camera, but your voice will be. So just keep that in mind. So let's go down the panel and have everyone introduce themselves. We'll start with the aforementioned Ellie.
Hi, I'm Ellie Cook. I'm a writer, composer. I act and I direct with Artsy as well. So I write audio drama. I also write for the stage. I write scores for some of our stuff, and I also write musicals separate from Artsy. So.
What's your title with Artsy?
Oh, also I'm the president of Artsy. I forget that sometimes.
I was gonna drop that in there.
Oh, they gotcha. Thanks, guys.
I'm Billy Barefoot. I am the secretary of Atlanta Radio Theater Company. I've done voice acting, Foley artist. I'm the only person on this panel today that's really not a writer. I did.
Sorry, it wasn't me. That's all right.
I did adapt a part of a detective story, so that's really the only writing experience I have.
That counts.
And I think that's all for me. I'll pass it down to Mr. Henry.
I'm David Benedict. I'm the vice president and executive producer for Atlanta Radio Theater Company. I've worked with them for the last 30 years. I'm old. I do pretty much everything for the company except compose music. Yeah, I think that's it. I do everything for the company.
And just for the record, Artsy is doing shows here tonight, 7:00 in the Hyatt Regency. Hyatt, I don't never remember which room it is.
We have bookmarks up here that has our whole show schedule on it, so. Yes, please help. Please
And we're in
take
the app.
Yes, and you can find them in the app.
We have 4 shows this weekend. Yes, please.
There you go. Cool. Nice. All right, so let's start with scripting as the foundation, right? Because everything starts with a word. So we'll start with David. What makes writing for audio different than other mediums, TV, film, stage?
So right for audio, you have a lot more flexibility because you can do a lot more with a lot less without having to worry about all the visual elements. You can just kind of let your imagination run wild. Now that said, you also do have to bear in mind that there are certain things that take place in the audio world that need a little more explanation. My favorite example is the fact that if you're in a film and you want your character to pull a gun on somebody, they can just pull a gun on somebody and everybody knows exactly what's going on. In an audio world, you have to have an additional thing. So they might have a holster, or they might be pulling it out of their pocket, or they might cock the gun, or maybe it's all very silent and they just say, "I've got a gun on you." So you have a lot of options, but you can't just take it for granted that your audience is going to know exactly what's going on at any given time.
Did you want to?
All I can really speak to on that, when I adapted that detective novel, there were long periods of narration because it was told in first person. And I know that on stage and with radio drama, if you have a super, super long monologue, your audience starts to snooze. So I would have to break that up with action, with some action from the scene following it or the scene that's in it, and some sounds and some, just I don't want my audience to get disengaged or fall asleep because the detective is drumming on about what a great detective is.
Let's do a lot better.
And yeah, that's all I can.
Okay, Ellie.
This is going to sound weird, but in audio drama, it's really important that you know where the camera is, or at the very least, where is your audience sitting in this scene? What's their perspective? Because you're going to want to have things like we do a lot of footsteps in Foley. That half of Foley is footsteps and doors. And so you've got to know, is this person approaching? Is this person walking away? Are they all walking along together? Are you walking down the hallway with them? Like, where is the listener in the scene? And that's kind of how you design your Foley. And I've found too that just the way that you describe things and the way that you script out lines has to be a little bit different in audio drama because you don't have facial expressions to go by. You don't have, oh, we're in this lush setting, or you can, but you have to establish that in different ways than you would, on stage. or on screen. So yeah, I think kind of being aware of your listener at all times is just super, super important when you're scripting for audio.
Yeah, and I agree with that. It's because I actually block out audio scenes on a
Yeah, I
whiteboard.
have to know where
Yeah,
everybody's
so I can
standing in
see
the
where
room
everybody
or
is.
whatever. Yeah,
Right.
otherwise it gets confusing very quickly.
Right. And I think the other trick, I don't know if it's a trick, but the one thing you have to keep in mind when you're writing for audio is that we have a visual dictionary, right? We've been watching film and cartoons and TV our entire life. So we all have kind of a visual dictionary in our head of, oh, somebody's eating an orange. This probably isn't going to end well for them or whatever it is, right? Right. So we don't, they'll get scurvy at the very least, right? They won't get scurvy. So we need to, like David said, you want to make sure you have some establishing sounds because the audience doesn't necessarily know where they are without. So, I mean, the audience is going to know a creaking door. They're going to know footsteps, but with footsteps, like, and Ellie and Billy, actually all three of them can attest to this. Are they walking on grass? Are they walking on gravel? Are they walking on, as the writer, you need to tell the Foley people where it is. If anything, the script is going to be your blueprint for everything. Every department after the writer, after you get it, is going to be using this to establish where the people are. And the more detail you can give, the better the Foley team is going to be able to do it.
We also have a writer here today who's just raised her hand. It's really good at that. Miss Kelly.
Oh, Miss Kelly, right there's.
All right.
Thank you. So
Her Foley instructions are awesome.
cool. So, oh, you have a question?
I actually just wanted to comment if it's okay.
Sure.
All right. When I wrote my first script for the Atlanta Radio Theater Company, The House Across the Way, all the way back in 2004, my first draft, and this is one of the things I love about writing audio drama, and particularly writing for this group, writing for the Atlanta Radio Theater Company, is that when I first started writing this script, I had a whole storyteller motif with, kind of a folksy vibe because I was trying to write a small South Georgia Cinderella variant. And while the company is like, okay, this has potential. Potential is an interesting word. But they helped me figure out that I didn't need that storytelling narrator. I didn't need the narration.
Right.
I could convey everything through sound and action, and it would be a much better play.
Right.
So I've been writing plays for the Atlanta Radio Theater Company for 21 years now, and it all started with that helpful feedback. So one of the things that makes writing audio drama special is that you do get feedback.
So that's actually, you brought up a couple good points there that I think we're going to touch on here. Actually, the next question, and we'll start with Ellie, is how do you balance your dialogue, your sound cues, and silence when you're writing for audio?
That's a great question.
Thanks.
So I tend to lean pretty heavily into dialogue. Well, no, it really is a balance because with the sounds, that your scene really comes alive when you have good sound design, when you've got good Foley and everything. So all right, this is going to sound like a plug. I did not mean it, but I guess it is too. We're doing a show tonight. It is my script called Maid of the Mirror, and it's so exciting.
I'm directing it.
And she's our director. It's great. But no, yeah. So like for instance, in this one, it's a fantasy. It's set in a fairy world. It's a fantasy that's set in a fairy world. But like Tony was saying in the last question, we do have kind of that bank of knowledge, right? So I want to establish that we're having a fairy revel in a cave under the ground, and that's the court. And so what do we need then? Okay, we need music because they're dancing and it needs to sound, like folksy and fairyish and kind of dark and thing. And we need lots of voices and we need lots of weird voices because they're fairies. So we needed to establish that it's not just a crowd, right? Like we all this kind of different things. And then once you kind of set your scene, that part kind of takes care. You said it, the audience can see it now, right? And then you're ready to go into your dialogue, and you maybe don't necessarily need, there's a certain amount of conservation of detail. Do you
Right.
find that to be
Yeah.
true?
Yep.
Where it's like, I know what it all looks like, but I'm not going to be able to convey every detail of what it looks like to an audience in a way that is effective. It's better if I tell them a little bit of what it's like and then let them decide what it looks like. You know what I mean? Like, I need to establish what it's like rather than every meticulous detail of what it is. And I find that kind of, I know what this room looks like, but they just need to know what this room does.
They need the big picture. Of what's
Right,
next.
yeah, is really helpful.
So-
in that.
So where's that? Tell me where that scene is again. Underground. What'd you say?
Underground in a cave, a crystally cave. It's also like the court,
Right.
fairy court.
So now, if you're a prose writer and you're considering writing, should I write my story for film or should I write it for audio? That scene is not going to fly for a unknown writer in film because it's going to be extremely expensive. In audio, there is no limitation
I can have whatever I want.
to what you can do, right? So if you're generally a prose writer and this is where, what should I do next? Audio is an incredible place to start to transition that writing out to a wider audience or to a different audience. There's going to be steps like Kelly said, you don't want narration, but you can make that transition, and it's a wonderful thing. I wrote I was commissioned to write a film, and in the film I had a scene shot in a Publix, a grocery store, and they came back and said, yeah, that's going to cost us like $25,000. So you need to put it outside a bodega. It's like, well, that kind of kills the whole suspense thing. But, so in audio, I could have put it anywhere and it wouldn't have mattered. Billy, to you?
What I always stress over when I do Foley is, does my audience know what's going on in the scene? I always try to, make the right sound effects at the right time to try and make sure that, my audience isn't lost as to what's going on. I was going to say, the BBC's Big Finish, they're really good at that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I have to work in both realms in terms of minimalist audio drama as well as also full soundscape audio drama. I write primarily these days for a show called Mercury, a Broadcasting Hope, which is about a group of people living in a college radio station during the zombie apocalypse. We do a new episode every day, but because it's set in the radio station, there's not necessarily a lot of opportunity for extravagant sound effects. Like the show is basically about survival, emotions, hope, keeping hope alive, day-to-day activities, and we're reporting on things that we did off mic. So I can talk about my character. Oh yes, we went out and we plowed the field for the garden today, and we did that, and all that would have made sound, but now we're just talking about it. So Mercury is a minimalist audio drama, but at the same time, if I'm writing something else, I like to look to Thomas Fuller, who was one of the early members of Artsy, who was so good. He had a technique that I have not seen a lot of other writers use, which is called a cascade, where he starts the play with this extravagant barrage of sound effects. Like we have a play called The Passion of Frankenstein, and the very first thing that happens is the creation scene, and there's thunder and there's lightning and there's music and there's Victor who's screaming about he needs more power, blah blah blah. There's this giant emotional climax right at the top, and so that's what I try to do when I'm writing something besides Mercury. Also, as a sound designer, I'd like to lean into more is more. I just recently finished the studio production of one of Kelly's plays, Nothing at All, and there were a number of places where there was a lot of dialogue, and I'm like, it needs something. They have to. The room needs presence, and I couldn't figure it out. And somebody finally told me, like, the dialogue is doing enough work. You don't have to have something else here, and that was very useful feedback for me because I'm always like, oh, there needs to be wind, there needs to be a forest, there needs to be a fireplace, there needs to be something has to be going on. And
Ambiance.
somebody had to tell me, it's like, not necessarily. You can let the dialogue do the work here. But yeah, I tend to go for more is more.
Right. And I usually write less for the backgrounds. Usually it's like once we've established the scene, we're on a spaceship, we're in a private eye's office, we hear the fan or whatever, and then we fade it out and let the dialogue carry the rest of the scene. All right. I want to move on to pre-production and planning. So And this is assuming that you are going to be the writer, the director, the casting agent, the sound design. So you don't have to do all these jobs yourself. You should on your first project, just so you kind of have an idea of what everybody else has to deal with. But this is kind of how I started, was just doing everything. So how do you cast your actors for an audio drama? And do you prefer to cast them remotely, or will they send in a tape or an MP3 or whatever? Or do you have to do it all locally? And I don't know who we started with. I think we'll start with Ellie. We'll start with David.
So for auditions, I'm fine to do it remotely on Discord, is what we've been using lately. But when it comes to actually going into the studio, I prefer to work with local people. And the main reason why is because, well, there's two reasons. The first is because you get a better dynamic when you actually have your cast all in the same room. They're able to play off of each other. They're able to feed off of each other's energy. They can overlap dialogue better. It sounds more natural. And the other thing is that as an audio engineer and post-production person, I'm just not that good. I do very well if everybody's all in the same room, but rooms have a sound. Ringtone is a thing. And if I have somebody who's recording in my booth and then I have somebody who's recording like in the bedroom or something like that, I'm not good enough to make it sound like they're in the same room.
It's very hard to make it sound like you're.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Mics have a sound, like
Yeah.
you're,
yeah, if they're on a telephone.
two of the same model of mic can
Yeah.
have a different sound, like it,
Yeah, if
the
one of those-
specific mic and equipment you're using makes a huge difference.
Yeah,
I
if one of
think.
those characters is on telephone or on television, or if the character is actually supposed to physically be in a different space, then yes, I can do it. But when it comes to trying to match room tone, I have to.
I've done all of my casting on Discord or had them send in an MP3, so I can't really speak to in-person casting, but that's usually how I do it. And you just have to go off the voice. Yeah, and you know, you don't always get the mannerisms. You don't get to see that. As far as pre-planning goes, I will say for our live shows, when I'm directing, you know, we do a sound design and I have to decide what sounds are going to be Foley and what sounds are going to be recorded. And sometimes that comes down to, do I think the Foley team's going to be able to pull off this sound? Is it too hard? Are they going to have water on stage? I hate water on stage. And so, you know, sometimes I hate to say, farm that out to the recorded effects, just to, so that, and I also don't want to give the Foley team too much to do. They can't keep up because it's a busy job in that Foley team.
Looking at you, Jeremiah Willstone, episode 1. It's gonna take 3 of us.
Really?
You know how often that happens, that we need 3 people? Almost never.
So,
It's
well,
gonna take 3 of us.
so if nothing else,
Tonight at 7 in the region.
right, I was gonna say, you can see how they solved that problem tonight at 7. Speaking of Jeremiah Willstone, the original author is Anthony Francis, just walked in. And we did, I took his work, did an adaptation. I don't know if we're gonna have time to talk about adaptations today, but so it'll be fun to see how you guys solve that, because I was gonna say, and Jeremiah Willstone it involves time travel, it involves a lot of cool stuff, but for audio, it's a little bit different, right? Because time travel visually is easy to nail. On audio, it's a little bit more difficult because you lack that complete visual component. But there's 3 of you running sound. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and
I
that's
like
not
that.
even including the recorded effects. Like
Oh, that's just the Foley? The live Foley? Okay. So just, yeah. So you guys, so we're clear on our definitions. Foley is, you know, the when you see the old time radio shows, right? Foley is the guy you see slamming the door, walking the shoes on the table, and then digital effects or recorded effects are everything else. Yes. Come up to the microphone though, so we can record you, or yeah, so we can get it recorded. Thanks. I didn't know you were available, or I would have.
Well, anyway, since I have experience as a director, I
Right.
felt like I should say something about casting.
Okay, yeah.
And it's interesting to be the writing and directing, since I've been writing for Artsy and have gotten to know different people's acting strengths. Oftentimes when I write, I will write with a particular actor or a couple of
Sure. Yeah.
actors
Absolutely.
in
Yeah.
mind. And I always find it burns my butter when I've written this great part for this person whom I really want to audition and they're not available.
But see now, so and let's talk about that for a second. So Artsy has the benefit of 1,000 million actors. Okay, maybe not, but they have an entire
Always
pool.
more actors than anything else. You know
Right,
that.
yeah. And y'all have this pool though of like people that you can go to. When I was doing Harry Strange, I didn't know about Artsy, and it wasn't a like, oh, I can write for this person, because I didn't know any actors. So I had to go the opposite way, where I had to post auditions at the local, at the I can't think of the acting group in Atlanta in 2015 or 2010 when I was doing Harry Strange. But I mean, I was doing it cold. So I was bringing in, but you guys, you have that wonderful option of so many actors and so many talented actors to choose from.
We're really lucky.
I have to pivot back to that.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
When-
I'm sorry, I
when the
just,
person- no, I have to pivot back to that approach when the people whom I have in my head don't audition.
Sure, not to be.
And so I have to, I have to open my mind. I have to crack open my mind.
Right.
It's like, this is how I've been hearing it in my head. Of course, when I'm directing somebody else's work, that's when I have to, we consult. We consult
Right.
in terms of.
Yeah, we did a lot for this.
Yeah,
That's what we're doing tonight.
whose voices are right, and I have to go with what she wants the characters to sound like.
Right.
But when I'm directing my own
Ooh, that was-
writing, it's very hard sometimes for me to crack my mind open and say, okay, you didn't get the person you want, so let's see who can give you a different interpretation of this particular part. Who can
Sure.
sell you this?
I was just about to say, it expands the character. Like, as much as it burns us when that happens, it expands the character. The character is often richer for it. And I will say too, I have definitely written parts with a particular actor in mind, and then we got into auditions and I was surprised. It was like, oh, this didn't really click with them like I thought it would. But this person that I didn't think of at all absolutely killed it. Like, what do I do with that now?
Well,
That's the person who killed it, of course. But
Well, I
always
there's
like to
the
listen
May
to
and
people
June
that
issue when I was, okay, I'm gonna audition for every female part, although I think I'm gonna end up with Dr. May if I end up with anything. And it turned out to be June that I ended up with.
Right.
Surprise.
Okay. But, no, rather than take over things, I'm gonna wind it up by just saying that 90% of directing, when you're directing audio drama, is choosing the cast. If you have a
Absolutely,
good
right.
cast, you can, once you've chosen them, you can pretty much let them go. There
Right.
are little nitpicks about, okay, maybe you should
Right.
stress this word this way, but really, once you got the cast, it becomes you're on.
Right. And thank you, Kelly. That was the point I was been wanting to get to, is that casting is 90% of it makes your job 90% easier as you go down the road. I was incredibly lucky with the initial cast I had for Harry Strange. And that, like Kelly said, you just let them go, right? They know what they're supposed to be doing. And these, the actors I had were all film and stage actors, right? So they were experienced. They wanted to do voice work, because voice work is lucrative when you start getting paid for it, but it's very difficult to break into. So they were like, yes, we will be happy to do your little podcast for free, because this is going to lead on to bigger and better things, which it did for a lot of them. And the other thing, and Kelly, I think you sort of touched on this. If you sell your screenplay, you've sold your house. Your job as the writer is now done. They may come back to you for rewrites. Some smaller indie places will, but for the most part, your house is sold. If they want to take out the living room and put a rec room in it, they're going to do that. Audio drama is more like stage, in that the writer is far more respected and far more brought in on things to make, hey, what do you think we should do here? Or the director say, this isn't working for us. Let's kind of workshop this through and see what we can do. So the writer you have a lot more value in audio than you do once you sell your script. Let's jump to recording. So a lot of people, this is where we have a lot of questions. Wait, before we move on though, because we're kind of at the halfway point, do you guys have questions on scripting or, kind of the casting bit? If you do, come on, step up to the microphone and just line up behind her if you have other questions.
Regarding scripting,
for terminology, scripting is equals to writing.
Yes, correct.
When you are writing, you largely write to an audience. With your profession, do you find that because you are audio, a majority of your audience is going to be persons with visual disabilities and against other persons who are writers? Do you have to cater to that additional general audience of persons who may be blind?
We don't have to, but I
familiar with. But going back to what we were talking about earlier with the way that you write prose versus scripting, I don't do a whole lot of that kind of description, because we mostly don't talk in those terms, right? Like when we write that in a book, it's so that you will
To
imagine
visualize it,
But
yeah.
I don't stand there and look
Right.
at a sunset and go, look at the sunset, it's 6 different colors. You know, I just say the sunset is so beautiful.
Right.
You know,
You just
or
use-
like, or
yeah.
I feel so peaceful. That's what I'm trying to evoke, that feeling of being there. at the
Right. Not
sunset.
necessarily seeing
And
it.
I
Yeah.
feel like that is more about the tone. You have thoughts? You have, yeah. You
Yes,
have
I was
more?
going to say, in terms of describing sunsets with the colors, Kelly actually did that in the Nothing at All script that we're going to perform on Sunday night.
Oh, yeah.
It's a plot point. Like it's an actual plot point.
Yeah, you're right.
Where you know the healer is trying to cure her patient, and one of the ways she's trying to do it is by lifting this person's mood. And so she opens the blinds to it and is like, oh, look at this wonderful sunset. I want to describe it in detail. I think upon further reflection, now that I understand the question a little better, I don't think it's necessary to exclude that kind of terminology from an audio script, mainly because you don't have the perspective of the visually impaired person. Visually impaired covers a very broad range of experiences. And so some people may be able to see colors, or they may see different colors than you do, or they may see shapes, or they may see, light and shadow. And by virtue of not knowing what everybody's individual experience and perspective is, I think that it would be very limiting for everyone involved if you intentionally pulled your punch. And I think you should tell your story the way you want to tell it. And if that person has an issue with experiencing it, then if you're lucky enough that they give you feedback, then you can have a conversation with them about it and try to help them. But I don't think it's necessary to necessarily punch and leave out terminology.
Yeah, and to that point, yeah, I actually hadn't thought about it until you asked the question. But I think I lean more towards what Ellie said, where I don't care if you see the sunset, but I want you to feel the sunset. I want you to it's a beautiful sunset, and then you're going to see whatever you want to see. And to the point of this, yes, David, I'm telling the story again. To that point is we had a scene, the first scene in the first episode of Harry Strange, where we eviscerated a guy, right? So we turned him inside out. And again, this is strictly audio. So there's no visuals. We had no pictures of this happening. So yes, because it would have been. So for the effect, what we did was we opened up an orange in front of a microphone really slowly, and then we
I
added
was
some.
just gonna say some kind of fruit was involved.
Yes, there was
That's-
definitely fruit.
You want guts. Cantaloupe is great. for
Cantaloupe
that
is
kind
another
of
good one,
thing.
yes, or watermelon. So, and then we added some more wetness to it, right? So what we did when we had the first episode, we had all the actors, their significant others and friends and come over, and we had set up an old time radio, and everybody was looking at the radio. And the scene kicks in and you start to hear it. And the actor was an incredible actor. He was so over the top. He's like, oh my God, you're killing me, blah, blah. And then you start hearing the orange peel, which is his guts coming out. And one of the people watching the radio covered her eyes so she wouldn't see the scene,
Oh, that's so good.
which is so awesome that
You succeeded. repeated.
Yeah, so
and-
right, so we hit it right on. Now, I'd like to think that it was the script, but it was the script, the actor, and the orange.
The collaboration
The,
is
the
everything.
collaboration with all your
Collaboration is
departments is what made that scene happen. I didn't describe the evisceration. I think for the Foley, I said, we want to hear like guts falling on the floor or whatever, but that wasn't, the audience didn't hear that. That was just for the Foley team or the sound team. So, to write, you want the feeling, not the visual, is what you're shooting for with audio, right? So you want the person to feel scared. You want them to feel, love or just enchanted. You've got a gun, that you generally wouldn't write anything in audio that you wouldn't say in person unless you need to, right? Like the gun thing, like people aren't necessarily going to know that's a gun sliding out of a holster, right? They're probably going to know if you cock the gun. We've heard that enough times that we'll know what that is.
You can do that some with a stapler, by the way.
Nice.
Throwing that out there.
Oh, what a
If
good-
you're gun cocking, stapler's great for that. So a really clacky stapler.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, very
We actually use the digital effect. One quick story, and then I'll let,
Right.
no, not tonight. Not tonight. You didn't.
It'll be a stapler.
One more quick thing. So here's the thing about gunshots. To me, a gun. I mean, I go to the range. I shoot. A gunshot is a gunshot is a gunshot. Apparently not, because I guess I had described Harry as using a Glock, or maybe no. I think I said Harry had a Glock, and somebody emailed me and said that sound effect was clearly a 38. So I was like, well, freaking bravo to you, brother. Here's a T-shirt, because I wouldn't have known the difference. I used the sound effect that said X gunshot. So that was it. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Oh,
Kelly.
no, you don't owe me an apology.
Okay.
Anyway, this won't take long, I promise.
Okay.
Because I actually have written a couple of novels that have been published, although the publisher went under. So one of them is available on Amazon, and it's only $2.99. It's called Nightmare Lullaby, and it's really good. But it's
All right. Well, thank you for your question, Kelly. And
there's not even a man in row, but and I have found that description, that kind of description about the sunset being 6 different colors, that's one of the reasons why lately I have tended to lean more into my playwright side as opposed to my novelist side, because I hate that kind of thing. I don't think I'm good at it. But I-
oh, okay. Right. I understand. Yeah. Right.
What I'm good at is describing feelings, interiority, character interiority. That's what I tend to lean toward. And if description of physical places or physical things comes into it at all,
Right.
it is through the medium of their interiority. How they perceive it.
Right. Exactly. Right. It's the
And that's what we're
interior.
talking about in
Yes,
your
that's right.
script. It's
Yes.
the same thing. She's
Right.
inviting him to enjoy it. Like it is in that context. So yeah, that absolutely tracks.
Okay,
Right.
so that's enough. Just
Cool.
That's one of the differences that I kind of appreciate. Some people don't want that. Some people don't want a lot of. Yes, sensory detail is important,
Right.
but just for its own sake, I don't think.
Sure.
Some readers want that. Some readers don't.
Right.
And you cannot please everyone. The people who will find your book if it is for them.
Right.
Absolutely. I feel like the scripts are the same way.
All right. So let's move to. Are there any questions? That was a great question, by the way. You kind of took over the whole panel. Great job. So, are there any other questions on what we've talked about already before we move on? Yes, come on up to the microphone.
I just want to ask you guys about sound effects. Like you said, you have a Foley guy that does a lot of that stuff.
That would be Billy
Yeah,
and David.
You guys, do you do all of
And-
the sound effects yourself, like in studio, or do you outsource it from any places that create sound effects? Do you pay licensing for that? How do you guys typically go about that if you don't have it in your library already? I'll probably let David speak to that because he knows more about it than I do. But we do have our own sound library. We have like a hard drive that's full of.
You have a couple of birds.
So you like rival the BBC sound library.
Tony was talking about, you can type in gunshot and it'll give you 40 different kinds of.
Why aren't they labeled by caliber is what I want to know.
They are. So for live performance, we like to use a lot of Foley because that provides a much more visually interesting experience for the audience.
Live
Although some-
performances are such an odd sort of hybrid, right? It's
Yeah.
audio, but it's
Yeah.
not really. Only
But it's
audio.
visual, right, yeah.
It's,
But you
Yeah.
also have to be careful. One of my favorite stories was performing outside at Stone Mountain Park, for their Frontier Days festival. It was like they wanted to have stories told that fell between the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, which we had to really source a lot of material for that because we didn't have that kind of thing just lying around. And one of the stories called for a gunshot, and we had done very minimalist preparation for this. We were intending to just use a clipboard. Like you just snap the clipboard and there's your gunshot. But when we got there, there was a guy who was doing a recreation with a black powder musket, and he was demonstrating that how old timey weapons work. And it was such a great sound, and so we went to him and we asked him, "Hey, can you do this on cue?" And he's like, "Sure, absolutely." Well, it had been raining that day, and so we get up to the part of the script where it's supposed to do the gunshot, and we hear click, and we all look at the guy with the black powder musket, and he's like, we all look at Foley, and they're like.
We didn't bring the clipboard.
And the next line from the actors was supposed to be, "She shot him."
Always. That's always how it works. When you miss the sound, it's always the most important.
And so we're all looking at each other, and then the actor who was supposed to have been shot was like, "She poisoned me." But in more specific terms, to answer your question, we do have a sound effects library that we purchased from a company called Sound Ideas.
Okay.
It's royalty free. You pay for it, and then you
own it.
And we own it, and we can use it however we want. The trick is that if we ever work with like an outside group, they have to credit us because we paid the licensing fee for the sound effects. So if I work with, for example, the Academy Theater, and they want to borrow a sound effect from us, they have to credit us somehow. But other than that, yeah, I just pull. And when it comes to studio work, I tend to be really lazy about it. I will routinely just pull things from the sound effects library because it's there.
Well, and recording sound effects in a way that sounds good is like a whole other job in itself. Like there's a reason that you can buy these as big packs of sound. Getting a sound where it really sounds like the sound and you don't hear the room, and it's like that is a job. That is, like that requires engineering and stuff for it to really sound good. So it just, a lot of times for studio work, it just makes the most sense to use the stuff we have recorded already because that's all been done. Whereas when we're doing it live, we get to get into, you have a lot more control with Foley. If I want this actor to be in a hurry, I can make their footsteps as hurried as I want them to. They can hesitate and stop. There's a lot of footstep work in Kelly's play on Sunday night. That is, she's walking through the forest and the scary things are happening and the spirits are trying to distract her. And so I did a lot of like 2 steps and hesitate. Okay, and then she takes a few more steps and she's trying to tell, this guy to leave her alone, and so she's walking fast and she stops. Like it's just a level of control that you're not going to get with recorded effects. So in something like that, we would probably do it, record it live. It would be worth it. Although you just finished the recording, I don't know what you did. I haven't heard it yet.
What I routinely did for nothing at all was I would go into the sound effects library and find individual footsteps and then manually interchange them on different channels so that it would be like step, 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 step. Now these days I don't have one and I'm thinking about getting one, but apparently these days they have plugins for your digital audio workstation where you can just tell it, I want footsteps here, and you can drag it, and it'll do it for you. I need to look into this more, but
I think Reaper.
Sound engineers who were like, "Oh yes, I just bought a footstep plugin." I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, I think Reaper has that. So actually, that's a good lead into our next topic. What gear do I need to produce an audio show? So in 2011, when I did Harry Strange, I had an AGT microphone, 4 of them, a Behringer mixer, and an Apple, a MacBook, whatever, Apple Book, I think it was still called back then, and a conference room at KSU. So we were about as low tech as you could be. But because we were doing audio drama, it worked. And the whole rig was, other than the computer, which I had bought because I needed a computer, I think everything cost probably under $500. If you are doing this yourself, minimal is you want to spend as little as you can. Now that being said, we're going to talk about the gear Artsy uses and their venture. But remember, that's a higher level. They have their own studio. I had a conference room is what we use. So, and it still worked. I mean, you still got the stuff out there. So don't break the bank on gear. Just start wherever you are. So David or Ellie, which end do you want to start, or Billy?
Jerry, I just, because I think David will have more technical things to provide. During COVID, during lockdown, I'm a theater teacher and music teacher as well. So my teens and middle schoolers suddenly couldn't do a show this year because we were all in lockdown. So we made an audio drama and everybody recorded at their house. And half of them were doing it with their Bluetooth earbuds with a blanket over their head or sitting in the floor of their closet or whatever and recording their lines. And then my daughter Rory, who was one of my teens, was editing it all together. And we did The Secret Garden with recorded effects and where we had bought a sound effects pack and everybody was recording with what they had. Is it as polished as an artsy production? No, because again, microphones matter and we
Right. Or gear does matter.
12 different ones and most of them were not really made for that. But it still sounds, there's still a lot you can do. It doesn't have to be the most polished. And in my opinion, it's kind of like the student film thing, right? It's
Right.
like, make the movie, just make
Just make it. Just
doesn't
get it
have to
done.
be this huge, if you don't have all the money, just make the movie because you're going to learn from it and you're going to realize which things you do and don't need. And so, yeah, I'm with Tony, like work with what you got, do what you can. One microphone. You can do it with one microphone. Buy one good microphone, mid-range even microphone, and start there and mix it on your laptop. Like it really is
And
very accessible in my opinion. Yeah.
no, I was just say before we roll it on down, Audacity is fine to start with. If you have Audacity, the latest Audacity drop is fine. Reaper is better, but Audacity is wonderful for everyone entering into audio drama.
So when it comes to that kind of thing, my advice is always, I went to an audio drama festival called the Here Now Festival one time. There was a guy who was in attendance named Casey Whalen. He's a wonderful audio dramatist. Casey Whalen does amazing work. He swears by Pro Tools. And if anybody ever asks him, what should I use? He'll say Pro Tools. Pro Tools is not cheap. And since they moved to the cloud subscription level that everybody else is doing, it's gotten worse. My advice is always, get a clean signal and use what you know. Use what you know. You don't have to have Pro Tools. You don't even have to have Reaper. As Tony just said, Audacity is completely fine. Whatever you're comfortable working in, whatever keeps your workflow moving, get a clean signal and use that.
Audacity is free, by the way, so that's why that's why I'm recommending
Yeah.
Audacity.
I can't speak to a whole lot. I can speak to like live equipment that I need, which is usually 2 or 3 shotgun mics and Foley tape.
Very
We also have this big, we call it the door box, but it's got, hinges and a door and latches, and I can make all kinds of cool stuff with that.
Half
What
the
else?
time we use things.
What else is pretty standard? We have an old camera that we use to make clicking sounds and.
Yeah. This little thing, it's got the best clicky button. Okay, look, I'm going to warn you now, and I'm sorry, this is going off topic. I'm going to warn you now. Foley is a little bit of a sickness. Like once you start hearing things in terms of the sounds they make, you
Yes.
kind of can't stop.
Sounds like a panel idea.
It's
Sounds like you should do this as a panel
like
next
a
year.
whole panel just on Foley. We absolutely could.
And I remember hearing David say this before. Yeah, you're always listening for new sounds, and you'll hear something. What was that? How did you make that sound? I'm going to do that.
My kiddo started as a very young kid because I was writing a show set in an old radio station where they were doing Foley, and we were riding through the Dollar Tree with them in the seat at 4 years old. They're outside at 15 now, so pause for existential dread. There we go. But they were like 4 years old riding through the thing, and they're going, that would make a good sound. That would make a good sound. That would make a good sound. And now they do Foley for us, so there's the show tonight. So.
Parenting done right. Do you guys want to talk about microphones?
Sure. You don't have to have top-of-the-line microphones. At the studio, we have AKG C214 microphones, which are pretty good. Microphones are one of those things you can spend as much as you want. I wouldn't, if you care about quality, I wouldn't get anything less than $50. I like
Right.
Shure SM58s. Those are about $100, and they're really good. We use those for Mercury. So we used to record Mercury at the studio, but when COVID hit, we couldn't do that anymore. And so now Mercury gets recorded completely remotely. And what I have done is, with Artsy's money, I've purchased a few SM58 microphones and some XLR to USB cables because I'm the only one really needs a real audio interface because I'm the one who's doing all the audio engineering. All I need from the rest of the team is just their voices. And so if you're looking to XLR cable, don't get cheap on that. Get a good one.
Yeah.
Because they will fail at the wrong time. Yeah, and then I just distribute them around to whoever I need to perform for me. But you don't have to have top of the line microphones to get good sound.
I don't know a whole lot about microphones. I know for my home recording, I use Bumblebee 2, and it works pretty well. And I found that on sale at Amazon for like $20. So
Can't remember the model on my
if you
microphone.
can catch a deal,
It's okay.
sometimes you can get a pretty decent microphone. Yeah.
The one that I use at home is a condenser mic, and it's more, it's especially oriented towards music, recording music, because that was a need that I had. But I think even then, I definitely didn't pay more than $100 for it.
Do you want to?
I just want to jump in here really quickly. That's a really good point. If you do go the XLR to USB cable route, you have to get a microphone that does not need fan power.
I also have a preamp
Yeah.
because
Right.
So
it's an interface.
what Ellie just talked about with a condenser microphone, condenser microphones are really cool, but they need phantom power, and you're not going to get it from a USB cable.
Yeah, I can't plug it straight into a computer.
Yeah,
It has
you're
to
going
go
to need
through
a special audio interface that can provide phantom power.
Do you want to talk about the difference between the microphones and which ones are probably better? Not the brands, the technology behind them.
I'm not really a hardware person.
Okay.
I will say that condensers are a lot more forgiving in terms of how far off mic you can be and still be heard.
Right.
If you're looking at like these directional microphones right here, you'll notice that as I'm talking to them, I'm able to talk over here and I'm able to talk over here. But if I do this, I'm not on mic anymore. With a condenser, you have a lot more flexibility. And so that's one of the reasons why we use them in the studio. Those AKG C214s are condenser microphones. They need phantom power. But what it allows is for the actors in the booth to be a lot more expressive because they can be a little further off mic and it doesn't degrade the sound. But for something like Mercury, where we're not doing a lot of moving around, then these directional Shure microphones are perfect.
That kind of like also gives you the options of things, because a lot of times you want to indicate that someone is approaching or that someone is far away or whatever, and you want, to be able to play with the range of the microphone, and that really gives you more options. If you want that kind of coming on to mic, the person is walking up to you as they're saying this, or they've got kind of a thing. When they're super, super, super directional, it's just a lot harder to do those kinds of effects. That's the right word.
Yes. Yep. All right. So we have come on up to the microphone.
So I do like voice acting kind of this. I'm like in the writing part.
Come play with
I
us.
had a question about like preamp and condenser. I have an AKG P220 and I have a Focusrite Scarlett Solo. And I feel like I do have some issues with the connection. Every once in a while, I'll just be like, crap out on me.
Yeah.
What do you recommend to like either help that? And I do also like home studio recording stuff too. Like I'm also
Mine
very
is
new
a
to this. So
Scarlett
I
as
like,
well. Yeah, mine is a Scarlett as
Okay.
well. So I'm not
So you have a
sure.
preamp. Do you have a recommendation on?
Oh, that's what I mean. My
Yeah.
preamp is a Scarlett
Okay,
I2i.
okay.
So yeah, and it's a few years old. It's
Yeah.
probably a little out of date as well. No, I know what you mean that it can be tricky, and it's like, wait, what just
Like
happened?
sometimes
Where
I
did
just
it?
open a program that just goes.
I'm the same though.
Okay, so cool.
I'm doing the same turning it off and back on again kind of
I'm
IT
looking
for
for
it than you are.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, just keep on.
I just want to sing. Why doesn't my microphone work? Yeah.
Mine's a community-based question. I'm in a visual community, so if I wanted to do research or wanted to do a painting, I would go research old-timey paintings from that era that I'm trying to recreate. In your community, when you're doing sound, do you go back and go 1940s, 1950s, 1960s baseball versus 1940s baseball? Do you and your community go hardcore into your audio research?
Big time. I think that's a writer thing.
Yeah, it's a writer thing. I
Writers
think.
are
Yeah.
researchers, at least in my experience. That
Yeah.
seems to be the thing. So yeah, definitely, because like we have the show that we're doing Saturday night is comic stories from like the golden era of comics, which is like the 30s. And so part of that is getting that sound where the announcer has to sort of sound like that kind of sing-song voice, like he's a baseball announcer on the radio, kind of absolutely the style. Like if we're going for, I write a noir series. I want it to sound like a noir from that period, so no, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is definitely part of it.
Yeah. And so I'm writing a Victorian mystery Lady Sherlock. And in it, I had a character and I might reverse this, whose rank was ensign. Because I was writing it, I was like, oh, ensign sounds like a good rank. Turns out Victorian England didn't have ensigns, they had lieutenants. So in the next episode, for no reason at all, he became a lieutenant. So yeah, I do there, nobody's gonna remember from year to year. But so
You will notice that we all switch between lieutenant and lieutenant though, depending on who's trying to be extra.
yes, yeah, that's a whole different. I mean, that's important. That's kind of a director question, right? Is like when you're doing accents, right? You have to.
So yeah, which thing are we gonna do? Yeah.
Right. How are we going to say this
That's part of
word?
the research, though.
Yeah.
And because it is a community,
Yeah.
we're all confidently going along, and then Bill will be like, actually, that's not.
That's not how they
what
did
it
that,
would have
yeah.
been. They didn't have that. It would have been this, and we're like, oh. Or we had something on nothing at all. Remember where she used the
There
word
was-
ken, K-E-N, and I was like, that's actually a Scottish thing, not an Irish thing. What do you want to do?
Right.
And she changed the line.
Yeah, and
So, yeah,
okay was not okay didn't exist in Victorian, or that didn't come around until the early aughts, 1900s in the U.S. from a sports writer. So nobody could say to Lady Sherlock, "Hey, are you okay?" Or Sherlock couldn't say, "Are you okay?" because they wouldn't have known what that meant. So yes, research, and you get lost in the research. I'm writing techno horror called The Skin Man. I have magnets up here if you want, and I don't know how long I spent on DNA research and sound research as it affects DNA and humans, and you end up on some really weird Reddit boards when you go down that. Yes, this is the one where I asked you about the aquarium.
Yeah, so he wanted to know how long was that aquarium sitting vacant?
15 years.
Yeah, he wanted to know. Okay, I don't know if people over here have been to Georgia Aquarium, but they've got a 6 million gallon tank of water called Ocean Voyager, and Tony wanted to know A, how much force would it require to break the window, and B, what would happen if you left it by itself without any
filtration, yeah.
filtration or anything like that for 15 years. And I said, Tony, that's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard in my life.
Which as a horror writer, I was pretty impressed because usually takes me a lot longer to somebody to say that. But
The filtration system stopped and the aquarium shut down and nothing else happened. The first thing that would happen is that over the course of the next couple of days, all the animals would die, and then they would start to rot, and then you get algae.
animals would die.
And then it would, and then it would just become this primordial soup of disgustingness. Also, in terms of how
I
much.
see what you mean now.
force
I'm already-
you
Yeah,
probably could.
right?
It's 2 feet thick and it's made of acrylic. It's not made of glass. It's incredibly tough. You can scratch it and you can melt it, but you are not going to break that.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. Yes.
I knew it.
Challenge accepted. Yes.
Absolutely. The play that I did right before this one that we're doing tonight was called May and June, and is about an AI, starring Kelly. It's about an AI that is being developed as a therapy assistant by a very well-intentioned team who wants this to be used to help people between therapy sessions and to help them communicate with their therapist, right? The purest goals. And so they've built in every safeguard they can think of because they know how people are and that they're going to want to get at this AI. And of course they still do. Well, I am not a computer engineer, but I badly wanted to tell this story. So it was a ton of research, and then getting the first draft of the script to rehearsal and finding out that half of the nerds in there with me were that kind of nerd, and I could ask those kinds of questions. It was very exciting. But somebody's like, and then I had one of them come up to me and be like, your terminology in this scene was really good. And I was like, that's almost completely by accident. Thank you.
Well,
So, yeah.
we also have a resource right over there for robotics at Google at one point. So just saying. So we only have 5 minutes left. Sorry, we went too far. So, okay. So yes, come on. If you guys have questions, just line up at the microphone so we can make sure that we get through everyone. We're going to do one question only. No, just come on up if you have questions. Technical stuff that you wish we had talked about, but we hadn't. That whatever you want to do there. We also, don't forget the QR code here for I can never remember it, the National Alliance of Mental Health. You can, that's not right. It's close.
Not me.
Not yes.
That's not life.
Melton illness. Thank you. There's an I. I'm like, well, that's not
Yes,
health.
yes, yes, sorry.
So you can,
There's no I in team.
But there's a me.
but there's a me. That's right. So you can donate here. They have a QR code in the back with where all the techie stuff is, or you can buy one of the ribbons, and DragonCon will match dollar for dollar whatever you guys give. So questions, come on up. The ribbon we bought at the DragonCon store yesterday, and it's whatever donation you want to give.
All right. So my question is just getting into audio dramas because I literally just started this year doing voice acting. I'm in the doing everything myself.
Cool. That's a great phase.
Yeah, fully on my own digital. Like
Sure.
You asked about Creative Commons on freesound.org. Great resource.
Good resource. Yeah.
Yeah. How so when doing like auditions and stuff like that, a little bit of feedback I've gotten back is being a little too narrative in it, just because of like being in that audiobook mindset.
Mhm.
What are like some advice to get out of that mindset, or like how to like nail auditions when you're doing that, like when you're looking at casting people for yours, like how
So are you asking from the writer's point of view or the actor's?
from the writer's casting, like how like to help me like
So kind of
Put
asking a
myself out
director,
there.
like director hat.
yes,
Asking a person with a director hat on
Yes.
as an actor.
yes.
Right.
Go ahead.
So what I would recommend.
Or
Yeah,
David.
yeah, yeah.
What I would recommend is that you send an email to info@artsy.org. I will let you
We
join
rehearse
the
on Discord
and
on
you
Wednesday
can rehearse
nights.
with us and we will help you.
I'm not local.
It doesn't matter. It's
Okay.
on Discord.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
we will
I'll
help
shoot
you.
you more.
Yeah, we will help you to, so one of the things that Artsy has done for a lot of people is improve their ability to cold read, because we throw people in the deep end right away. Like we'll bring in a brand new script and we're just like, here, read it. And so we've all gotten really, really good at cold reads, and that kind of thing will help you with your acting. The other thing I'll say is to listen to as much audio drama as you can, like other people's audio drama, not just ours. There's so much right now.
Yeah,
When I first joined
It's fantastic.
When
Yeah.
I first joined, time's up.
Time's up. Oh, okay.
When I first joined Artsy, real quick, it was us, Bristol, there was a group in New England, and someplace out in Seattle. That was it. That was it in terms of independent audio drama. There were a couple of professional companies, but in terms of indies, there were like 4 people. And now it's everybody. Everybody's got an audio drama. There's so much good work out there. I can't keep up with it. But yeah, okay.
All right. So
Also, as a director, make bold choices. That is a great way to break out of it. Like, go big, go really, really big,
Yes.
and then you can bring it back. Make
All right.
big choices.
So we are out of time. If you have questions, we'll stick around for a little bit if you want to come up and talk to us. Thank you guys very much. I hope to see you guys at the con. We'll all be at Artsy show tonight at 7:00.